Welcome to Dorking Out. My name is Sonia Mansfield, and if you want games, I'll give you games. Joining me is my podcasting sister from another mister and the co-host of Dorking Out, Margo D. Hello, my friend.
Hey, my friend, I'm just pulling on my jumpsuit, getting ready for the fight.
Just hop on in. Come on in. The video game water is great. We are dorking out about 1982's Tron. I don't know why we decided to do Tron, but I'm glad we did because there's stuff to talk about. It's written and directed by Steven Lisberger, who also directed, I don't know if you've seen this, it's an animated movie called Animal Olympics. Have you seen this movie?
No.
It was on HBO all the time when I was a kid, and I don't know anyone else who knows it except for my sister. I don't know why. I'm like, it was on all the time. Surely other people have seen it. But anyway, Animal Olympics was a thing, y'all. This movie stars Jeff Bridges, Bruce Boxleitner. He's the Scarecrow from Scarecrow.
And Scarecrow, Mrs. King, yeah.
Yeah. I mentioned that to my husband, and he's like, I don't know what that is. And I was like, what? The show is on forever. How do you not know the Scarecrow and Mrs. King? David Warner, who I recognized as Evil from Time Bandits. Cindy Morgan. I guess she was in Caddyshack?
Yes, she was.
And Bernard Hughes. Who
was Grandpa
yes,
in The Lost Boys.
I love that character.
And Dan Shore, who played Billy the Kid in
Yes.
Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Yes. And I put Bill and Ted on our list because the new one.
We have to.
Yeah, the new one's coming out, so we got to talk about that.
Yes.
Obviously. Did you see Tron in the theater?
No, I did not.
I did not either. It must have been like an HBO thing or
It had to have been an
Showtime
HBO
or whatever. That's how I watched it. And I super loved it when I was a kid because I loved video games when I was a kid. Were you super into video games or no?
No, my brothers were, and
Yeah.
my brothers loved Tron.
Yes.
I was super into Jeff Bridges. Like, I think I entered puberty
Yeah.
because of Jeff Bridges. Like this and Starman, I would watch. I love Starman.
I love
oh my
Starman.
God.
It's probably like my favorite Jeff Bridges.
We should do that movie.
We should totally do. All right, let's put Starman on the list. I love Starman.
But my brothers watched this all the time because they were super into the video games. I mean, I like sci-fi, so I was fine with it. I was Star Wars and all that other stuff. But we didn't watch it in a theater. I know it was one of those things, like it was on HBO, and like we did that thing where you recorded a VHS tape of Tron. And so we had Tron and something else for years. And then when that tape got messed up somehow, it was like a big meltdown in the family because someone messed up Tron.
Who messed with Tron?
It's the 80s. Like
Yeah.
VHS tapes were expensive. To buy a movie was actually really pricey.
Super pricey. You had to, you would record them off of TV and you would have 2 or 3 movies on a tape. So you would have these like accidental double features.
Yeah.
So it would be like Tron and Can't Buy Me Love or whatever. Like, you know,
Right.
I don't know why Can't Buy Me Love popped into my head, but anyway, yes, you would have those. I was super into, I had an Atari 2600 and played like Pac-Man and Frogger and all that shit, adventure. And I was super into it. And Tron was like the video game movie. And I loved video games so much that I was all about it. But I also was like, Jeff Bridges is really hunky.
He's super hunky, and the effects are amazing.
They definitely were for the time. And I looked it up. So one of the first movies to use computers for visual effects, but it wasn't nominated for the Oscar. Did you read this too?
Yeah.
Because using a computer for visual effects was considered cheating, which is like ridiculous.
Which is so absurd now to think about it. But I feel like the effects really hold up.
I think so too. I think it's very interesting looking. Like, I had a really good time watching this again.
Absolutely.
Like, it actually takes longer to get in case you haven't seen Tron. Jeff Bridges is a computer programmer who accidentally gets sucked into a software world, like into like a computer mainframe, and He's trying to like get his way out. He's trying to find proof that he created all these video games that like an evil corporate overlord has stolen from him. And he gets sucked into this game, and they're like playing games against each other, like deadly games, kind of a like the Running Man, basically. And
definitely.
And he's trying to find his proof and survive these games and destroy the master control program, which is this weird like digital tornado thing with a face. I don't know how else to describe it. It's so weird looking. But at the time, like it was this kind of like weird mix of like computer animation, which was not a thing back then, and then like animation and live action. So it was I never could tell like when we were looking at animation and when we were looking at computer, but I'm sure a trained eye can tell the difference. But I think the look of it is so cool, and I had such a good time rewatching it. It's definitely like a period movie. It's definitely 82, but I still liked it.
It's very 82. The clothes aren't great. It's not a very strong style-wise kind of part of the decade. There's still leftovers from the 70s, but you have my one issue is once they have the costumes on, and the real costumes were black and white, mostly white with black stripes, and then they lit up the stripes like a neon color.
Mm-hmm.
And then the actors' faces would kind of shine mostly. And that's to make them all look uniform, which I get. But if I had a complaint, it would be, and I love Jeff Bridges, Bruce Boxleitner, Dan Shore. I like them all, but they look too much alike. There are times
Totally.
I can't tell the difference. Like you needed somebody there that was African American or something, or a woman or something, so you could at least tell the difference when they're fighting each other. Because there's times I had no idea who was doing what.
Correct. I definitely agree with that. And I also wanted to mention that one of the cool things about this movie was computers were not a thing that we all had access to back then. Like nobody, unless you were like super rich, maybe you would have like a personal computer. I don't even think personal computers were a thing in 82.
So my dad worked for IBM his whole career.
Oh, well, then.
So,
yeah.
I know. So we did have them, but we were that weird family that had them. And my dad's best friend was a professor at Long Island Hofstra University. He was a mathematician, brilliant guy, super loved him. And he would come over and laugh at my dad like, "You're slaves to a machine, Joe. This is a passing thing. You're never going to learn to meet people. These things are going to replace. What are you doing, Joe? This is the silliest thing.
He was
I'm
not
never
wrong.
going to learn to use it." Yeah, but then he became a financier. He became the person that became in charge of the teachers' fund,
Mm-hmm.
Mutual funds. That's the job he took on when he retired. And so he had computers everywhere.
Yeah.
But there was this time in the 80s, because I grew up with this, where there was like a lot of teachers, I don't know why, but like people had a distrust of computers.
Yeah. Definitely. And the message of this movie, it actually is very similar to The Net, I think, in that it's filled with like really dated movie computers, but the messaging is still definitely appropriate for this time. Like kind of the idea of you could get lost in the computer, basically. The idea of Jeff Bridges kind of fighting against the things he's created on the computer, I think is still quite relevant. I really did enjoy rewatching it, and it made me think so much about, I don't know, the footprint I leave on the internet, basically.
Yeah.
Which is a really big one. My friend said she could find everything about me on the internet. I'm like, awesome. What is wrong with me?
That's the way it is for everybody. But do you remember like those game halls, or where they had the video games at the mall?
Yeah.
Where there was that
arcades.
And the arcade, thank you, that's the better word. And
I like game hole, by the way. I think it's good.
I said hall, not hole, but okay.
No, I'm going to say
game hole is something else.
That's
another podcast.
Totally something else. That's on our Dorking Out After Dark when we talk about the
Jeff
game.
Bridges
When we
and
talk
Margo's
about the game hole.
But the arcade was where all these kids hung out, and it was like this mixture of dudes that were just obsessed with games.
Mhm.
There were potheads. That was where drugs were dealt. But it was also just a place to hang out.
Yes.
And there was a lot of sort of this those arcade kids, like they're never going to have real jobs, or they're so they have like that social interaction,
Mhm.
and nobody realized like one day they're all going to socialize that way. It's just they're not going to be in the same room. They can do it with somebody, the other side of the world. So you kept thinking that it was dehumanizing, and there is something dehumanizing about it for sure. But there is something that connects people with computers. We just didn't know what it was yet.
Exactly.
And so it was easier to just sort of think that they're just going to ruin us and cause world war.
Yeah.
And, probably will, but.
And they probably will. But they were, I could see why movies like this existed, or War Games, or Terminator. Like the idea, computers were scary.
Yes.
They were a mystery. I mean, you guys had one. I didn't know anybody that had a computer. And
no, we were the only ones in my neighborhood.
For a long, long time.
Yeah. And I remember when we got internet, and it was a big deal. My stoner brother John would like hang out with his buddies using my dad's computer.
Mhm.
And I remember my sister and I like, how are you talking to another person without the phone?
Yeah.
But it was the phone, because you had to use the phone to hook it up.
That's right.
But we got AOL first before everybody else, so that whole downloading sound and shit, like
yeah.
My family was ahead of it.
You were. My family was not.
No.
I left for college with a like word processor, which was a very like glorified electric typewriter. And I was like, I'll just have to use this, and then spend all my time in the computer lab, because
the computer lab.
Who wants to use a word processor? Nobody.
No. The things that we could do on our phone now versus what we had with those computers then, it's incredible.
So crazy.
Yeah.
I used to play the Tron video game all the time.
Was it a good game?
I thought it was a good game. I super loved it. I sucked at it. I was terrible. I probably put so much money into that. I could only get past like the first two things, like the first two rounds or whatever. I sucked at it, but I loved playing it. But maybe it's because I loved movies so much. So it was like Tron was like this little thing that combined video games and movies. So I was like, oh, it's like the best of both worlds. I super loved it. Maybe that's why. I wrote in my notes, I love the scene. Here we go. I love the scene where, so Jeff Bridges has been fired from his software engineer job, and now he owns an arcade, and he lives above the arcade.
Yep.
Because of course he does. And there's a scene where he's like playing a video game. It's basically the Tron video game. And he has like a crowd around him, and it's like a rock star is performing, and everyone's like, yeah, he's doing it. And he's like sweating, like playing his video game.
He has to change his shirt when he's done. He's sweating so much. Really?
I love that people were that. It seems silly to watch, but I think it's true. Like if people got really far in a video game, people were interested. There's a reason there's like documentaries about like the King of Kong and like all these things about people who get really far in video games. There was this like kind of fascination with how far you could get in a video game, and you knew that you personally were probably never going to get that far, and you wanted to see what it was like. You were trying to find the end of the story, so you would like get a crowd around, and it just kind of cracked me up because we had arcades attached to our movie theaters here in the Bay Area, and I worked at a couple of the movie theaters that had arcades attached to them, and you would see that people would start to gather around someone who's just killing it on a video game. It happened. it really took me back watching it. I laughed because I was like, that's stupid. It's like he's a rock star. And then I was like, but no, that really happened.
Well, so they go to his apartment, and actually, Tron is Bruce Boxleitner. It's not, you think it would be Jeff Bridges, but
Yeah.
it's not. He's Clue. But they go to the apartment, his apartment, above the Flynn's, which is the arcade above his, below his apartment. So they go up there, and then Jeff makes this comment. Sorry, Flynn makes the comment like, "Hey, does she throw her clothes around all day?" Like letting us know I stopped her before you did, just in case.
Well, there was another scene before that too, where like Bruce Boxleitner, whatever his character's name is, I forget. In
Tron.
He's Tron in the actual game. He
Alan.
He says to her like he had access to you. Like
the dialogue's not great.
No, it isn't. There's like where is it? I wrote it down. She says, "Oh, Flynn had group 7 access." Like, which is like high level access. And then he said, Andy had access to you. And I was like, so what? Fuck you.
Yeah. Slut shame. I know.
Also,
it's not a perfect
I would
movie.
totally let Jeff Bridges have access to me.
He can have it now.
Mm-hmm. True.
He could have had it then. Probably wouldn't have been legal. Wouldn't have been legal, actually.
No.
But still, it's an open invitation, Mr. Bridges.
Mr. Bridges, if you happen to be listening, we're here for it.
So I love the Disney show that's called Prop Culture. They did an episode about Tron, and they found all these great. Like, there's one scene where they're playing Highlight. Do you remember this? It's ridiculous. It's like this long paddle, and it throws these balls. And it's one of those games, like it's from South America, and like people got killed playing it. So they try to make it a thing in America. I think it was a Mad Men. I think it was like a Mad Men. They tried to make that, like that was an account highlight. Anyway, they found the paddle for that. And then they found the costumes, and they had Bruce Boxleitner come in. And he said those jumpsuits that they wore were so thin that basically, like when they walked around, including the woman, like the woman, the actress, Cindy, when they were walking around, they had to like put robes on because they were absolutely see-through. And it was like that for weeks.
Yeah.
And they just didn't know what else to do. And you can see these things. They look like they're paper thin because we would try to go to the commissary and like, sorry, Mr. Boxlight, you need to put a robe on or something. You're distracting everybody. Which cracks me up.
I looked up in the IMDb trivia. I love to go there. And I'm always fascinated by what's in there. And this is exactly from the IMDb trivia. Jeff Bridges produced too much of a bulge in the crotch area of his computer outfit, so he was forced to wear a dance belt to conceal it. And then it says 198 found this interesting. And I was like,
make that 199.
Yeah. And I was like, I think that's right. Now we're up to 200. I think that number should be much higher. That's all.
But it looks great on screen. I mean, for 1982,
it does, for sure.
I think it looks beautiful. I think it's very exciting. I think the plot moves along really quickly. It's got a lot of action to it. I mean, I don't care about the romance. I don't think they even care. I think this is just like it's somebody to hang out with. That I'm whatever.
The romance part is
weak.
It's so weak. It's so dumb. It's so like. It's fine that like her and Tron are together. I'm like, that's fine, but like making it so that she was once romantically involved with Flynn is super unnecessary. And then later in the video game, there's this like kiss before he like jumps into the master control program or whatever, and it's just super unnecessary. I'm like, that kiss isn't earned. She's not like aching for Jeff Bridges. I mean, maybe she really was, but
who wouldn't be?
Yeah, I know. I'm like, to be torn between young Bruce Boxleitner.
I know. Talk about that sandwich.
Jeff Bridges and the Scarecrow, or what? Actually, at the time, he was probably more known for being in those movies with Kenny Rogers. He was in all those gambler movies. Do you remember?
I didn't know that.
Oh,
no.
My parents loved those movies. Loved them. They we all loved Kenny Rogers, but they loved those movies. Oh my gosh. Kenny Rogers was side note, Kenny Rogers was so insanely popular in the 80s that kind of like Elvis, they let him do movies in which he couldn't act in. And The Gambler
He
was
did
one of them.
okay, but I mean, I loved him on the Muppet Show.
Yeah.
He was great on that. And I remember when he did The Gambler on the Muppet Show, like my whole family watched it. That was a big deal. My mom had all the albums.
Yeah, we did too. Kenny Rogers, very likable dude.
Yeah.
But
don't be married to him.
But don't be married to him. Don't eat his fried chicken. It's not good for you.
No.
And yeah, just listen to his albums. But we're not. Welcome to our Kenny Rogers podcast.
Our early 80s memories going on here.
So many. So you mentioned how you think the movie looks really beautiful. So after I finished watching this movie, because it's streaming right now on Disney Plus, I went on to Tron Legacy, which I actually had seen in the theater but haven't rewatched. And Tron Legacy is like super high tech, like state of the art graphics. It looks really amazing, but I don't think it's as, I don't know, visually interesting as the original Tron to me.
No, it was a groundbreaker. Yeah. I mean, there was nothing, and when did exactly, what's the movie? Blade Runner. When did Blade Runner come out?
That was also 82.
82. Yeah, those were the two big ones, and I don't think they were appreciated in their time.
Mm-mm.
And I don't think like people understood. You should see this on a big screen. I wish I'd seen it on a big screen, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I agree. I looked up because Tron came out and Blade Runner came out, and I was like, wow, these are really great like visual effects, and they're really great like art direction, right? And so I looked it up. I was like, what won the Oscar for art direction? Because I was curious. Tron wasn't even nominated. Blade Runner was nominated, and it was Gandhi won. And I think we can all agree that Gandhi has really great art direction.
Gandhi, that's one of those movies. My friend and I we talked about this. We wanted to see Flashdance, and it was a rated R movie. My mom said, no, you can't see it. So my friend was like, okay, we're going to go see Gandhi, because I was like PG.
Yeah.
And we totally went to see Flashdance. But years later, I tried to watch Gandhi. I'm like, this is so fucking boring.
Yeah. What'd you say? Gandhi and Out of Africa are the ones that like put you to sleep.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't think I've made it through either of them. Actually, I've fallen asleep in both. But yes, I think Tron. It looks great. It cost a lot of money for Disney. It was like $17 million budget, which now is like nothing. It's like a small indie movie now.
Yeah, but if you adjust it for inflation or whatever, that is a big budget, but it's all on screen. Mm-hmm. They put all that money on there, and it like I said, it looks beautiful. It sounds great. I mean, it's a halfway decent plot. It's that's my level. That's where the bar is now. It's a thing to watch.
It's
more than a thing to watch. I think it's visually very beautiful. I would say and I think that's what they do in the second one, is that it is more multiracial and multi-ethnic. So, because when you're going to put everybody in a uniform like that, a costume like, hello, they're all going to look the same. Sometimes I'm like, is that the Billy the Kid guy, or is that Jeff Bridges? I don't know. He looks sad right now.
I love that.
Why? I don't know.
You never know. You never know which character, but I love your names for them. It's Jeff Bridges, Billy the Kid guy, and Scarecrow.
Scarecrow.
and woman from Caddyshack.
Woman came from Caddyshack. And then the grandpa from Lost Boys.
That's right. And grandpa from Lost Boys, and Evil from Time Bandits. There you go. That's the cast. I have a confession to make. I don't really like Caddyshack.
It's okay. It's a boys movie. I hate putting boys and girls into it. Yeah. But I've really, over the years with National Lampoon, this whole idea of like rich white males get to tell us what's culture and what's funny and what's not funny, or what we can make like or not like or something. It's all in Caddyshack, because yes, we have Bill Murray.
Right.
Which is great. But it's still set at a goddamn country club. I mean, that's a part of me. It's like, really? We couldn't set that anywhere else? I don't know.
It does have Rodney Dangerfield going for it.
And I like Rodney Dangerfield. I know he was a cokehead and an asshole, but he's very, very funny.
I agree. And Back to School is definitely on our list.
Back to School's awesome. But that movie, it's also just very dated for the time. But yeah, it was just like at a time when basically rich white male writers decided what was funny.
Mm-hmm.
Straight white male writers. And
yeah, Caddyshack doesn't do it for me. But I know it is one of those movies that like dudes are always like, Caddyshack's the funniest movie ever made. I'm like, if you say so.
Yeah.
Meh.
Meh.
Meh. So during the rewatch of Tron, did it remind you at all of Ready Player One? Because it reminded me a lot of Ready Player One.
I have to say, Ready Player One is a disappointment to me. And we did cover that for my other show, Book versus Movie. It's another one. I think it's the Steven Spielberg movie, so it's beautiful.
Yes,
it's great to look at. But I think, and Margo and I said this when we talked about the show. I think like culturally, 80s stuff they miss things there as well. It's very white male centered. There's no Run DMC, which is appalling. Like there's no Eddie Murphy references. Like it's stuff like I was there in the 80s. You couldn't escape this stuff.
I did not like Ready Player One.
No.
I didn't like it at all. In fact,
I think
I actively dislike it.
I think a big problem, and I'm sorry, but I'm just going to say, I think the lead is totally wrong.
He has no charisma.
He has no, if you wanted an unknown, you needed an unknown like Ryan, what's his face? Like you need somebody, that talented and special right at their beginning.
Yeah. There was it's funny you say that because I stayed up and I watched Tron Legacy, and Tron Legacy has the same problem.
Ugh.
Like Jeff Bridges is great, and it's one of the first examples I remember of like the de-aging, because the villain is a young Jeff Bridges in Tron Legacy. So
that's interesting.
Yeah, so there's like 2010 Jeff Bridges, and then there's like from Tron Jeff Bridges. And I think it's pretty well done. It's a little clunky in some spots where you're like, oh, it looks a little weird. Like, I don't like that. But it works. But the lead who plays his son, I've already forgotten his name, and I just watched the movie last night. Like, he's nothing. He's just a blank slate.
They needed like a Jerry O'Connell. But Jerry O'Connell's too old now.
Right.
But like Jerry O'Connell, like 20 or 21, 22, for Ready Player One would have been perfect.
Just someone with like some sort of, it's
comedy
not
chops.
Comedy or like some personality. Like these guys have nothing. Like both of them. I thought the same thing about Pacific Rim. I was like, Charlie Hunnam or whatever his name is. I'm like, I don't know.
Oh yeah, none.
Yeah, I'm like, he's nothing to me. Sorry, I know people love
Miles
him,
Teller.
Yeah, Miles that's Teller. Another one. A good call.
I just find him charisma free. I think I know they're free to call. By the way, all of you, feel free to call me an asshole if you want. Not their fans, but if these men, if you don't want to call me an asshole, you're perfectly fine to do so. But there are certain people I just wonder how they got that part and how they. Yeah, especially something with Ready Player One, which was a smash hit as a book.
Right.
So it's going to have rabid fans. Like, I just didn't understand the choosing that they did, because they made some really interesting casting choices, which made me happy.
Mm-hmm.
But he's the lead. He's the one in every single scene. It's got to be like someone we can all relate to. And he could have walked by me on the street. I wouldn't have noticed him.
No, I've already forgotten him.
Yeah, I forgot him too. I don't remember who the fuck he was. I'm sorry, Mr. Person. That was the star of that.
The reason this movie reminded me of Ready Player One was both of them have kind of the plot device of who's going to control basically the internet. It's not the internet in Tron, because the internet wasn't really a thing, but the idea of like but that's what it was in Ready Player One. So in Tron, it's, master control program. Is that what is master control something? I forget. Anyway, Master Control. He wants to control everything because it's right in his name, Master Control. And then Jeff Bridges is like, no, it should be everyone or me. It should be me or whatever. So like he's fighting to like be the leader of the internet or whatever. And that's what Ready Player One is too. It's like, who's going to control the internet? Well, not the bad guy. It's going to be the faceless dude whose name we've already forgotten.
Right.
So it's kind of similar goals, I guess. But I think Tron is more fun.
I wasn't bored by it. I mean, there's, like you said, the love story is kind of dumb. Her part is really underwritten. They could have put different races of people just so I could fucking tell the difference between them.
Yeah.
It was really hard. But at the same time, for 1982, I think the special effects are incredible. And I think it was at a time like they didn't want to just honor a special effects movie. It's not giving enough credit to the actors or the writing or something. Mm-hmm. I don't know. But I think it totally holds up. If you've never seen it before, I think, and if you have Disney Plus and you're looking for a thing to watch, definitely check it out.
I think it's super
Jeff Bridges is so freaking cute.
He's so cute.
Yeah.
And I think he's adorable. Everybody drink. I think it's super fun.
Yeah.
We had such a good time rewatching it.
You and your husband?
Yeah. I thought about making it our family movie night and having Calvin watch it too. And he could totally watch this. There's nothing.
Right. There's nothing racy.
Yeah. There's nothing in this movie that a kid could not enjoy, but we decided to.
He just don't want me in the room talking.
So I just sent him away. Like I was like, good night. Bye. It's mommy and daddy's time to watch Tron. Did you see Tron Legacy? I forgot if I asked you that.
No. Should I watch it?
Yeah.
If there's nothing else on.
Yes.
Okay.
Then I could definitely recommend it in that. I think you'll agree with me about the lead, for sure. But I think Olivia Wilde is actually quite good in it, and it's got
I like her,
and it's got 2 Jeff Bridges. So
I'm with it. Okay, I'll check it out.
Okay. Other things I wrote down. Could we get a movie with Jeff Bridges and Kurt Russell, please? Is that a thing?
There's no movie with them together?
I don't think so. I did Googling. I tried to find it, and I could not find it.
So going back to our Expendables, remember our Expendables episode? Let's start it with them.
Yeah.
And then build out.
I'm into it.
I'm on fucking board.
I feel like that's a natural movie pairing. They could play brothers, for Christ's sake.
It's better than Pacino and De Niro.
It's more my vibe, for sure.
Yeah.
I would give them all my money to see the Jeff Bridges.
Yeah, take my money now.
Yeah. I'll pay the
I'll wear a face mask. I'll risk it at Alamo Draft House. Put a tarp around me. I'm in.
I'll pay the $30 that everyone else is going to pay to watch Mulan to see Jeff Bridges and Kurt Russell in a movie together. Or just talking.
They're on a heist.
Yeah. A heist.
A heist movie with them. Yeah.
I love it. I'm into it. Is there anything else we want to say about Tron?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. Do you want to hear about some other 1982 movies?
I do.
Okay. So Jeff Bridges was in 2 other movies in 1982. He was in a movie called Kiss Me Goodbye with Sally Field and James Caan.
I've never seen it.
I have never seen it either. And now I want to see it.
Yeah.
He was also a voice in The Last Unicorn.
I didn't see that, sorry.
So I definitely saw it when I was a kid. And then, because one of my good friends, Michaela, obviously hates my guts, gave a copy of The Last Unicorn to my niece Lorelai when she was like 5. And she watched it over and over and over. It is not good. It is not a good movie. And it's got like a soundtrack by, I want to say America, the band America.
I like America.
Yeah.
I mean, they're dorky, but I like them.
The song, no, it's not good. I'll just say. And if Michaela, if you're listening to this, I don't forgive you. And then also 82 Blade Runner which we mentioned.
Of course.
So many different versions. Pick one.
Mm-hmm.
You can't go wrong. E.T.
I think the directors is what I like.
I like that one too.
Yeah.
E.T. Obviously.
Love E.T.
E.T.'s so good. Annie.
I love Annie.
I haven't seen Annie in a long time.
I loved it when I was a kid. So that was one of the ones we recorded off of HBO. And I forget what we had after that, but yeah, it's a great soundtrack. That's such a great musical.
It is. I agree. Also 82, The Beastmaster. I can barely even say Beastmaster without snickering because I objectively know that The Beastmaster is not a good movie. But if it was on right now, I would totally watch it.
You'd have to.
Yeah. It was always on TBS, which is why we always called it the Beastmaster station. And before that, it was always on HBO, so we used to call it Hey Beastmaster's on. Like Beastmaster is always on in my house. If you ask my dad like what his like top 5 movies are, he'll list off a bunch of westerns and fucking lie to you. But like number 1 is Footloose and number 2 is probably Beastmaster. So other 82 movies, Friday the 13th, Part 3. That's the one in 3D.
Okay.
I watched it earlier this year, I think, on Friday the 13th. I actually texted Patrick Bromley from F This Movie, and I was like, which one should I watch? It's Friday the 13th. And he's like, you should watch the 3D one. It's the most fun. And I was like, sure. So I watched that one. It is. It's fun.
Okay. If
you like that sort of thing, which I don't think you do. Last American Virgin.
Oh, that's the saddest movie ever.
Saddest.
Jesus Christ. It's a kid's sex film that's trying to be Fast Times at Ridgemont High, but instead it leaves you with the biggest fucking bummer ever. Like, it is such a bummer of a movie with great soundtrack.
Yeah, this movie is fucked up.
It is so fucked up. I remember just being angry. I think it was sleepover or something, and a bunch of us watched it. And we're like, what?
Because you think
it's realistic. It's very realistic.
Yeah, it's very realistic.
It's how it would have happened.
You definitely think like it's a Porky's, right? Either you're like, oh, and then they all go to a prostitute and they get crabs and they try to like drown the crabs by hanging out in the pool, and like it's got this like Porky's thing, and then there's like, I don't even want to ruin it for people. There's just other shit in that movie, and you're like, what? When it happens, it's the biggest fucking bummer.
Yeah.
Good description, Margo. The Toy came out in 82.
Thank you. Bummer.
The Toy with
racist and a bummer.
Racist, definitely racist. And then the last one is so awful, Zapped.
With Scott Baio.
Yes. We need to put him on he's on the what a creep list for sure.
Yeah, he'd be like a creeplet. He's like a, when we do like a roundup of creeps, he'll definitely be on that.
For sure. Zapped is so shitty.
Ugh.
It's so shitty. I haven't seen it since I was a kid. And even as a kid, I was like, that movie's shitty.
Yeah.
And I had no taste. I liked Beastmaster. Ugh.
So do you want to hear about the top songs of 82?
Of course I do.
Okay, I'm just rounding up some of my favorites. This is where I get to be very self-indulgent.
Mm-hmm.
John Mellencamp, he was known as John Cougar at the time. Jack and Diane.
Song is so catchy.
It's super catchy.
It's stuck in your head right now.
It is. I love this song. A Flock of Seagulls, I Ran.
The song's dope. I love that song.
Dope.
Dope.
Rick Springfield, Don't Talk to Strangers.
Oh my God, I love Rick Springfield so much.
Me too.
I was supposed to see him in concert this summer.
Oh,
I was so bummed.
It was canceled.
Yeah, my sister and I, it was like our first concert ever was seeing Rick Springfield, and I told her, I was like, wouldn't it be so fun to go see Rick Springfield? He's coming to he was going to play at like what is now called like the Sleep Train Pavilion, but back in the day it was the Concord Pavilion. I was like, he's going to play at the Concord Pavilion again. We could go see Rick Springfield. We bought tickets and we were stoked. And then obviously it didn't
2020 happened.
I know. And I was like, God damn it.
I saw him just before I moved to New York in 95 and he was great.
Yeah. I love all the songs. Go ahead.
Do you remember a band called Asia?
Yes.
They had a song called Heat of the Moment. I
Yes.
loved the song.
Okay.
The video was great.
The I have Heat of the Moment, and I have another one. Shit. They had another big hit. It's actually like on my playlist. I have like a fit like playlist. I call it my fit playlist.
Yeah.
Shit. What's that song? I have to look it up now.
Look it up.
Only Time Will Tell.
Only Time Will Tell, which is good.
I loved Asia. I was into it.
No, I was into it. The videos were great, and it's good for working out. I mean, The Clash, Rock the Casbah.
Oh, yeah. You couldn't get away from that song.
And then my favorite song of 1982, the Daz Band, Let It Whip.
That song, yes!
It's dope!
I love that song. I still love that song. It's so good.
It's the dopest.
It is the dopest. Now I'm going to go listen to that after this. It's so good. What else are you dorking out about besides Let It Whip?
Let It Whip. So a podcast that I got into this week because somebody recommended it on our What a Creep Facebook group. They were talking about podcasts that they like there. And it's called Dead Eyes. And do you know about Dead Eyes?
No, please.
Okay, so Connor Ratcliffe is his name. He's an actor and a comedian. He's from Upright Citizens Brigade Theater, UCB. He was cast as a very young man in, oh God damn it, I'm blanking now. It's Tom Hanks. It's the War HBO miniseries.
Band of Brothers.
Thank you. God damn it. I don't know why. Okay, I got to write that down. Band of Brothers. He was cast in Band of Brothers for one episode, one scene, and it was such like a yes, sir, no, sir, okay, sir, here it is, sir, kind of scene.
Mm-hmm.
And he was super excited. He'd been living in England for a while. He's from America. And it's a scene that Tom Hanks is going to direct and star in.
Mm.
It's a big deal for him, and he gets the part. And then the day before he's going to show up, he gets a call from the casting agent. And they say, look, we got a problem. Tom Hanks was looking at your audition, and he hates it. He thinks you have dead eyes. You need to come in and read for the part again.
Oh, my God.
I know. I mean, my heart breaks for him. It's like that. Like the worst thing you could say to me is that I have dead eyes, right?
It's the worst.
As an actor, what can you do with that? So he goes in the next day, terrified and completely off his game. And he does an audition, and he totally flubs it.
Oh.
And they recast the part. And he goes back to the States when it's done, and he drops out of show business. He works at a bookstore for 14 years.
Oh, my gosh.
And eventually he joins UCB and Upright Citizens Brigade. I don't think it exists anymore because of what's going on, but it was like, it's this place where you can go and you could study improv and you would pay for classes, but you would put on shows every week. That was a part of your tuition. And there's a lot of people who become famous from UCB. And he went up the ranks super quickly. And then from there, he's been in a lot of shows. And he's in Search Party, which is a show on the Peacock Network right now. Like he's been in a bunch of stuff. But for him, he's never gotten over that the nicest person in show business told him that he had dead eyes.
It's so sad.
It's so sad. So starting this past January, he put out, I think it's a weekly podcast, but he puts out, and he just kind of tries to examine different parts. And he was trying to get an interview with the person that told him the bad news, but she won't go on the show. But this last episode, he had Ron Livingston.
Oh, yeah.
Is that his name?
Yeah.
He and another actor that was a part of that series, and he's had on Seth Rogen on his show.
Mm-hmm.
He's had John Hamm on his show. John Hamm, in college, he played ordinary people on stage, and he was the young kid, Timothy Hutton.
Yeah.
And John Hamm played his therapist because he was a senior in college at the time. So he's like 22 and playing, right. But anyway, every week he just talks to people about going through this thing. And it's so interesting to speak to actors, especially ones that are really successful, just to hear from them like, yeah, show business just sounds horrifying to go through.
It does.
Just the rejection. Like, no wonder people become nuts because it's so hard. And then in the middle of these episodes, I started listening to it yesterday. He started in January. In the middle of it, we have the coronavirus hits. And he had a whole series of gigs set up to open for the band Guster. And then all of a sudden that went away. And then he had an apartment in New York and he thought, I'm going to go home in the Midwest to be with my parents he thought we'd be there for like a couple of weeks.
Right.
Like everybody. They thought this is going to be a few weeks. And he's been home ever since.
Oh my gosh.
So he's been dealing with kind of a depression, like losing the gig and then in the middle of all this. But he's been so honest about it that people keep tuning in because you're kind of like really interested in his journey. And I think it's like one of those things, like the very last episode, he'll get an interview with Tom Hanks and finally talk to him.
I hope so.
I hope so too. I don't know if it gets closure, but you really get into the mind of like what it means to be an actor and what it means to be told no. And then just have to keep going and going. And just like, especially, he says it was one thing if it was like Stanley Kubrick fired me, you'd be like, all right, that sucks. But he's a crazy mastermind. Like Tom Hanks fired you.
Yeah.
Like that would hurt.
It would be in my bio on Twitter. It'd be like, Tom Hanks said I have dead eyes.
Yes. Which is like, because at first after the name of the show, I'm like, I really don't like the name. But then now that I've listened to the show a few times, like, no, it's the perfect name. That's what you have to go with.
Yeah. It must be, I can't understand how, I can't wrap my head around the idea of being an actor and because you're so vulnerable.
All the time.
And they can critique like any part of you and point out like any flaw. Like, I'm sure that this gentleman does not really have dead eyes, but maybe in his audition he didn't look great or whatever.
Right.
But like, I can't imagine like auditioning and they'd just be like, well, you're too fat or you have a double chin or your roots are showing or whatever.
It was one of those things though, like those are things you can work on. Like, because he did talk to a casting agent, but it wasn't one that he worked with there. But they were like, no, I would never say that because that would just devastate a person. What can you do about that?
Yeah.
So, what can you do? Yeah.
Sounds like the casting agent should have maybe come up with a better.
Yeah. But you know what? We all make mistakes.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was a big production. It was a huge amount of money for HBO at the time. I think it was Tom Hanks' like first. He directed a couple of movies, but this is like a big thing for him because he was an executive producer.
Yeah.
So I'm sure he felt there was a lot of pressure on him to get everything perfect. And that probably what it was. You know, none of us are perfect. We all have bad days or just don't handle things as well as we should have. And that's probably what it was. But this poor guy talks about like crying and going home and then having to tell his family he lost the gig. And, you
That's
know,
so awful.
I know. But it's not all, it's actually pretty, I don't know. Seth Rogen is really great. It's fun to hear him talk. He's got some really good people. So I think you should listen to it.
All right. I'll put it on the list.
Mm-hmm.
So I have another one of my Sonia's watching things about autism recommendations. I've been watching, I watched, it's a 40-minute documentary. It's really short. It's on Netflix and it's called The Speed Cubers. And it's about competitive Rubik's Cube players. I don't know the right word. Competitors, I guess. And in particular, it's about this kid. One is like Felix, and he's 23 years old from Australia, and he's just breaking records doing the Rubik's Cube. And there's all these things about like the 3x3 or the 4x4 and the 6x6. By the way, some of these people, they're solving them in seconds, like 5 seconds.
They always confounded me.
Yeah, I don't understand it. Some people solve it with their feet. Some people solve it with one hand. It fucking blows my mind. Anyway, there's this champion from Australia, Felix. He's 23. And then there's this like up and comer, and his name is Max, and he is 17 years old from America, and he is autistic, and he super looks up to Felix. And it's really about like their friendship that they form over the years and how they become it's not just about competing against each other. They really become like really good friends, and how Felix really helps him like with all of his like overcome like social anxiety and making him not feel so socially awkward, and just like how his parents were like, this was something that Max was passionate about, so we pursued it as a way to help him like get some social skills or something, and it just turned into this thing. And they say the dad says the sweetest thing. He says that Felix is a friend first and a competitor second, and he always like calls Max and like congratulates him when he wins, and they just sit there and they just break each other's records over and over. And once again,
my God,
we're talking about like 5 seconds. It's crazy, but it's so interesting, and it's really, really sweet. And it's called Speed Cubers, and it's on Netflix.
I'm going to definitely check that out.
Yeah, it's really good. And there's a lot of documentaries that came out in the early 2000s about people who do like crosswords or Scrabble or you know, all those things. And there's ones about spelling bees, and they do attract like a certain kind of hyper focused person. And you definitely see that in this, but it's really about their friendship, and it's super sweet. So I highly recommend it.
I can't wait to check it out.
Yeah. So where can people find you on the internet, Margo?
You could find me on social media at Brooklyn Fit Chick, and that's mostly for Twitter and Instagram. And my blog is brooklynfitchick.com.
And you can find both of us, if you like the sound of our voices, at What a Creep podcast. We're having the most fun talking about creeps. And there's a private Facebook group that you can join and chat with us. We're having such a good time. And you can find Dorking Out at dorkingoutshow.com and wherever you get your podcasts. And if you listen on Apple and want to give us a review, a
nice review.
A nice review, that would be amazing.
Someone was a total asshole.
Oh my God, that person was such an asshole. Somebody listened to What a Creep and then decided he hated us so much that he went to go give us a shitty review on Dorking Out too. It's like, what a dick. He or she, but I suspect I know the answer to that. You can also email us at dorkingoutshow@gmail.com. We have stickers. They're really, really cute. So please, email us if you want something, or if you have requests. We love to take requests. And you can find me at thesoniashow.com and The Sonia Show on Twitter and Instagram, where I share pictures of bread or Animal Crossing. Speaking of video games, this was super fun. Thank you for talking about Tron with me. Good pick, Margo.
It was so cool. And thank you so much for doing it. And then thank you, Jeff Bridges, just for existing.
Yeah, no shit. National treasure.
Right?
Jeff Bridges. He should be in the Smithsonian for sure.
So
next week, we are going to talk about Pacific Heights.
Can't wait!
With Adam Risky from F This Movie. I love it when we do our 90s thrillers. It's going to be super, super fun.
Adam is always a great time.
Yeah, he's such a fun guy, and doing these 90s thrillers are the best. So you'll definitely want to watch Pacific Heights with Michael Keaton as a bad guy before you listen to that one. And we'll be back next week, friends. Until then, wash your hands, wear your masks, stand 6 feet apart, drunk dial your representatives, and we'll see you next week. Bye.